Jack Garratt is with me here now in Studio Q. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back to Canada.
Thanks.
You've been here before.
Yes, I have. I've been here a couple of times. Yeah, feels good to be back though.
Well, you came as Jack Garratt, not the guy who's been lauded as the best thing since sliced bread.
No.
Though. This is the new Jack Garratt.
No, and I am putting that on all of my posters. Last time I was out here, I was doing shows. I was supporting Mumford & Sons, I think. We came out and did a couple of shows out here. One in particular, I remember we came out to Canada, did one in Edmonton, and a couple of other places up and around in this part of the world. It's such a lovely part. I do genuinely love being here. I've not had a bad experience out here yet.
Well, hopefully you will continue.
Well, and I can't wait to have one right now.
Right.
So.
Well, then here we go.
There we go.
I have to say, I was in California recently on vacation, and I listened to your new album sort of nonstop for days.
Thank you.
It's really amazing.
Thank you so much.
You know that because these are the kinds of accolades and praise you've been getting. But for many of our listeners, this is going to be an introduction for them to you and your music. First record, this one, okay. At home in the UK, you've had what can be described as a quick rise. I think other people would describe it as a meteoric rise.
Yeah.
You're shaking
Hesitant.
your head at that.
No,
Why?
only because to the majority of people, yes, but in the grand scheme of things, no.
Okay, you've been working hard at this for years.
For about 10 years, yeah.
Okay, well then let's not call it meteoric. but let me put it this way. I mean, for some people, meteoric would suggest you're doing really well in the charts, which you are. You're burning.
Exactly.
You're burning up the charts.
I tell you what, and in that kind of sense, yes. Like to sit there and have made a record, to have made the kind of record that I have made, which is not one that sits in the middle of things. It doesn't sit on fences. It kind of definitely tries to get rid of fences. To have made a kind of record like that, and for it to have received the kind of accolades that I've been receiving, and for it to have hit I think the midweek chart that we had over in the UK, it got to number 1, which was unbelievable. And then the end of the week, its opening position in the charts.
Yeah, you're beating Adele.
Yeah, at that time. But then at the end of that week, it hit number 3 after the Brits, where Adele, who got number 1, had won 4 awards, and there had been in memoriam to David Bowie, and his record had gone to number 2, and I was sitting at number 3 behind those two. Now I'm fine with that. I'm okay there. That's like to have even been in that kind of hemisphere, let alone to be sitting behind 2 incredibly talented artists like those two. That's the meteoric sense of it. Yes, the album I've released, one that is kind of a bit challenging and slightly different and a little bit left of field at times, like the one that Phase is, for it to have had that kind of attention and respect ultimately and appreciation from so many people. That's the bit where I sit there and go, yeah, okay, yeah, that's been pretty quick. Okay, yeah.
Is that what you mean by this isn't an album that sits on the fence, that it being ambitious and off the center, quote unquote mainstream? Is that what you mean by?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I've not intended for it to be any of those things. That's just the music that I've always made. I love pop music and I write pop music, but I also write soul music because I love soul music, and I love blues music, and so I write blues music, and I also love futuristic hip hop jazz music, so I try and write that as well, and everything in between. The reason why I say my album doesn't sit on the fence is because I haven't ever had a fence to sit on. I've just only ever tried to make the music that I want to make, and especially at a time now where pop music is kind of being, or has been, I think recently in the last 5 years, it's really changed its tune, and a lot of people have made incredible pop records that do challenge people's perception of pop music and do turn pop music into something that it always was, which was a, yes, mainstream and palatable genre of music, but always interesting and challenging and fun. People are starting to do that now, but for a very long time, for about 20 years, pop music was just dumbed down for a large audience who would buy it. And it was a business. It really, really became a business, and a very scary one for a little while. All I've ever tried to do is just try and respect the pieces of pop music that I love. People like David Bowie, people like Stevie Wonder, who redefined what it means to be a pop musician.
Who are you thinking of as contemporaries right now who are doing neat things and challenging the boredom of 2 decades of pop music?
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the kind of the shift, regardless of what you think of the person or what you think of the music, if you look at the shift in tone and maturity of Justin Bieber's music over the last just decade, let alone whatever beyond that. then I mean that's a testament to where pop music is, not necessarily where he is, but where pop music is. I kind of sit on the side of I don't think you're going to have a bad record if you hire someone like Skrillex and Diplo to come and produce it. I think you're going to do well with that. But it says a lot about the attitude behind that record and the attitude behind that music for them to have made that kind of choice, because even though Skrillex and Diplo are wildly successful producers, neither of them are pop producers. You're talking about one of the most influential mainstream dubstep producers of all time, and a dub slash. I find it hard to describe what Diplo does. Because obviously with Major Lazer, there's a lot of reggae and a lot of dub influences and everything like that, and kind of two-step stuff. But all the stuff that he did with Mo and all of his the stuff that he did with MIA, like it's not quite like that. It's world music. He kind of deals with the western side, the eastern side of music a lot as well. To be able, and those are like, that's not pop music. That's not regarded as pop music. That's not been found in pop music for so long. And so to bring those two people together and get them in a room with Justin Bieber and get them to make a pop record, that's a challenging decision to make. And I think it was the right one, because it opened a wide audience of people. It allowed them to open their minds. That's what it did. It gave them the opportunity to think outside of the box as an audience. And I think it was a really, really bold move.
And is that you too, kind of, using those ingredients of pop music, but expanding the horizons of people who might normally just like more mainstream pop?
Well, yeah, I mean, because ultimately as well, I don't want to offend anyone and say that anyone's stupid because of the music they listen to. Like, that's not true. That's not possible. But it's up to the people making the art to understand that they're making art. The business side of it, the product side of it, though very fascinating and very interesting to me, is a byproduct of the main focus point, which is art as music. And I think it's up to us as artists to kind of remember that and to make sure that we're releasing music that we respect, and people will in turn respect it. But for me, personally speaking, I find the best way I can respect my audience is to not give them what they expect from me. I like to make all my music sound different. I like the fact that one of my songs can be completely incomparable to another one, because that's fun. That's just fun for me.
To your point about you making art, the entire album, I mean, it is pretty much a one-man show. It's the Jack Garratt show. You play almost all the instruments on it: piano, guitar, ukulele, harmonica, and it's your first album, and that's an important step into any artist's career. So what gave you the confidence to say, "Hey, I'm just going to do this on my own"? You had a few collaborators, but what gave you that confidence?
I don't know. If I'm honest, I don't know. I think I'm very determined. I love what I do. I'm ultimately a perfectionist who doesn't believe in perfection. So it means I'm constantly striving to be better than I was a minute ago. If I ever achieved perfection, or if I ever achieved a state in which I went, cool, okay, that's done. Like, stick a fork in it, kind of thing. What I do tomorrow? Like, that's what I try and think about and try and remind myself of when I make music. The confidence, I guess, to be able to do a record like this in where I've done it myself, and then to go and do the shows that I do when I play everything myself, and it's not confidence, it's fear that it would go wrong if it was done any other way. Like, if I'm particularly honest, that's
trust?
Where it comes from.
Lack
No,
of trust?
I don't think it's a lack of trust, and I'm getting better at delegating, but it's just being able, like, I just have a very, very fixated view on what I want to do and what my art should be and how it should sound. And I don't always find people who instantly resonate with me on that and understand that and get that. But when I do find people, I keep them.
Yeah, I imagine you're getting lots of offers for people who want to collaborate with you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like, we just dropped a kind of a refix of Worry, and Anderson .Paak did a verse on it. because that makes sense, because I think he's doing incredible stuff at the moment, and I love the way that I think his mind works, and what he's done with the track is phenomenal, and it makes sense. But I've had other people kind of do features on other stuff of mine before that haven't seen the light of day, just because it didn't work, it didn't make sense. I don't believe in putting something out there just because it's been made. I believe in respecting my art and giving people something that I really genuinely believe is good. I don't know whether I don't know. I know what you mean. How it's kind of. It seems like it's a weird thing to kind of do it all myself, and it seems like there's a level of confidence that I have that maybe other people don't, but I don't think that's the case whatsoever.
I don't suggest that it's weird. It's just uncommon, especially for people
exactly.
with their first album.
But
right?
I think a lot of people are doing it now. There's a lot of people who are still doing that. Like, Jamie Woon just released a record called In Time, and I know that he's a fantastic producer and works a lot on his own. I'm a big fan, obviously, of James Blake, who does this kind of stuff as well, but collaborates with the right people when it's necessary. Even someone like Kanye West, who started off doing so much on his own. Now he kind of curates his own music, but he's still the one in charge of the creative direction of it. It's people who care about the art that they make. Little Sims, who's an artist from the UK, one of my favorite artists in the world at the moment, is exactly that. I've never been in a room with her musically, so I don't know her musical talents, but I know that she is so heavily in charge of what her sound is. And to do that, she collaborates with lots of people who get her. And that's the important part. You surround yourself with a team of people who get you, no matter how big or how small it is. Same with someone like Chance the Rapper.
Yeah, or Grimes.
Well, yeah, exactly, right? It's that exact thing. Like, and there's a lot of artists out in the UK who are doing that. There's a lot of garage and grime artists and stuff, and underground artists over in the UK right now who are doing that thing. They have a team of people and they get it. They get what they're doing, and that's what they're concentrating on. And whereas 10 years ago that wouldn't necessarily, be attractive to big business types, because you can't necessarily see the financial gain in that, but the outreach that these guys are making, people like Stormzy, people like Skepta, people like JME and Giggs and Little Sims and people like that, the kind of outreach that they're getting is unbelievable and much larger than some record labels are able to achieve, because the audience's respect and the audience's attention is shifting to the more integral side of art making.
You mentioned your live show. It's again, you're kind of a one-man band. It's something sort of to behold, and I want you to give people a picture in their heads about what it's like to see Jack Garratt play live. So
I walk out on stage with a big kick drum on my back and cymbals in between my knees, and no, nothing like that. I don't know, the live set came from a place of necessity. I had all of these electronic songs that I'd started writing, but I was still playing on an acoustic guitar from when I was writing acoustic music. And I had a couple of weeks to kind of put something together, because I had some big important shows coming up, but I didn't have the time, nor did I have the money to put a band together. Ever since I was a kid, I've been able to kind of split my mind up musically, and I've been able to think of more than one thing at once. And I used to play for drums and bass for a friend of mine, and we toured out in Europe and stuff together, and I was playing live drums and playing bass on the keyboard. Not because I was like, oh yeah, people will love this, but because I just could, and I knew I could. It was never a showing off thing. It was always out of necessity. And so I kind of sat there and went, okay, I've got these big shows coming up. I know I can do it myself, and I can't afford to do it any other way, so I have to do it this way. Ended up building a set with a friend of mine called Matt Harris, where I just have a set of drum pads and a keyboard, a guitar around my neck, and a microphone in front of me, and through sequencing and looping and just playing things at the same time, I try and keep a show together.
You could, however, it's interesting. You could, however, hire people to do this now. You could afford it now.
I didn't know about that.
Okay, so that's the live show. You are hard to pin down, and you say so as much that's sort of your ambition. Like, you don't want to be lined up on a fence. And as you read the reviews of your new album and how people describe you, there's always all these, a lineup of words describing, like you dabble in, elements of folk, pop, electronic, ballads.
Yeah.
Where did that all start for you, this sort of experimentation of genre mashing as a songwriter?
I grew up in a very fortunate position where my mum and dad never said no to music. They never said, don't listen to that. They always encouraged me to listen to everything. I'm aware that that's not the kind of upbringing artistically that a lot of people have. I was very fortunate to have that. I had everything as a kid around every. We had all. I just had all kinds of music.
Your mom was a music teacher.
My mum is, yeah, she was an elementary school music teacher. My dad taught himself to play the guitar when he was in his, teens, and that kind of do-it-yourself attitude and adoration for music comes directly from those two people. But we had, Stevie Wonder playing in the house when I was a baby, and David Bowie when I was discovering music, and I'm trying like Earth, Wind and Fire, and just people who made fun music that was also interesting, but that also genre hopped and challenged itself. Like I mentioned earlier, both Stevie Wonder and David Bowie are people who are hugely influential to me because they never wrote the same song twice. And they're two of the most influential artists to have ever lived. And I was listening to them when I was, 4 or 5.
So musically, nothing feels like essentially home to you.
Nothing's off limits either. But that's kind of the only thing that does make me feel kind of, I guess, home is blues guitar. That's how I taught myself to play guitar, by watching Stevie Ray Vaughan videos.
Wow.
And learn how to write a song by listening to Tom Waits and Jackson Browne and Paul Simon and Stevie Wonder again, but then learned to produce them by listening to Stevie Wonder and David Bowie and just people who challenged music and challenged their own music. None of those people who I've listed have ever written a song that makes me sit there and go, oh, they think they're better than themselves now. Never. I've only ever heard songs in which they're trying to better themselves, but not because they want the adoration for it, but just because they want to be good.
You know what's interesting about you? So people talk about your music. They don't focus as much on your lyrics, to be honest. You hear a lot about the sound, but lyrically, and maybe I'm reading too much into this. But you sort of sound world weary or melancholy, which is interesting. You're 24.
Yeah.
Are you world weary? Where's this all coming from?
I honestly don't know. I love the lyrics that I write, but it takes me a very long time to write them. I find lyrics really difficult. People have suggested things before. I don't necessarily know what I believe. I know people have mentioned things like have suggested that I have an old soul of kinds. To suggest that the soul that I have is where my lyrics come from, and they are much older than my body is. And though part of me is very much willing to listen to those things, I'm also not sure if I 100% believe in that. But it's an interesting subject. I genuinely though do believe in the idea that genius, and I don't want to say this word because I'm not calling myself that whatsoever, but Greek philosophers had a theory that genius wasn't something that you had or something that you lived with. It was instead a spirit or a god that came and visited you. That's how you could have a eureka moment. You could have a moment of genius. And we've all experienced it when you're thinking about something so much and you just can't get your head around it, and then you leave it, and then suddenly 2 hours later the problem fixes itself. Because your brain works it away in the background while you're not thinking about it. But to other people, that's genius coming to visit you and going, here's how you fix it. And then there it is. And I believe that that's kind of how some of the music I make gets made. I sit down at a piano and I just let that thing try and overcome me. And that's mostly where my lyrics come from. A song of mine like The Love You're Given started from nothing to the version that's on the album in 2 days, like 2-3 days. Lyrics, melody, production, mix, everything in that amount of time. So that was a very quick turnaround for me, but that's because I sat down at a piano, heard a sample by Lisa Fisher, and wrote a song. And the first thing that came out of my mouth is what's on record, the lyrics, the melody, everything. I just performed a 4-minute song live and went, okay, cool, I need to record this because it's just happened. I kind of, and it's
sort of
beyond me
an
slightly.
outer body experience.
In a way, but not necessarily. Like, I'm still aware that it is me behind the creative drive of it, but I fully put my hands up and admit to the idea that it is beyond my control to a point. Yeah.
You've had a great year this past year. I mean, beyond the accolades and the acclaim and all that stuff that comes from the outside. I mean, it seems to me you're pretty proud of this record. You're proud of what you've accomplished for yourself, which is more important to you than what other people say. We were talking about before we started.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, regardless of what the critical evaluation of my art has been, I've made it and I'm proud of it. and I love everything on it. I haven't wasted a single note. Everything there is there for a reason. And ultimately as well, I've given 100% of myself to this. Like I literally have. I had moments where I could not do anything else because I gave everything I had to this record. And if people don't like it, then fine, because I know I couldn't have done anything else. I know for a fact that I could not have tried any harder than I did to make the best record I possibly could. Which kind of means, yeah, if people then turn around and hate it, I go, great, good. That's because then there's nothing I could have done.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're big in the UK, and now you're over here, on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
What's that feeling? Is that changing Jack Garratt, or yeah?
No, it's not changing me at all. I think people over here are still kind of lapping up in the idea that I'm this slightly outgoing, a little bit eccentric British guy because the music I make seems to paint me as a introvert shoegazing hipster type. And
also the beard helps.
I mean, the beard helps. No, don't get me wrong. I like to lead people down the wrong path. But no, and then I come out here and I'm fun and energetic. And, I love my job. Jesus, like I love what I do. And I love the art that I make. And I want to encourage people to do the same thing. And I want to come out here and play music. And I think people enjoy that. And ultimately, it's kind of shown in the fact that I've come out here to do a tour and every single show has sold out. That's not even happened in the UK. Every single show on this tour tour is sold out.
What do you think that says about you and your music over here?
I don't know, but I don't think people know what they're listening to. No, I'm kidding. I'm so grateful to know that it's been able to bridge that ocean. I remember hearing stories of when I was a kid about, artists who would go and try and break America, and it was this big thing that UK acts had to do. And I don't think that's relevant anymore. US fans, US musicians, people over here and people over in Canada and people just in America and North America have totally decided to just own what's coming out of the UK. And they're so accepting and willing because we're producing stuff which is interesting and different to, I think, what a lot of the rest of the world are doing. I've had a lot of people ask me before, what's in the water over there? Because there must be something, because you guys are doing crazy shit right now. And I sit there and go, well, no, we're just making the stuff that's in our head, and we love what we do.
And being allowed to make it.
And being allowed to make it. And that's the big difference. And I've said this recently in a couple of interviews that, like, a lot of people like to throw me into a particular pile of people just because I'm signed to a major record label. And what's an issue for me is what they don't realize and what they don't understand is that the team of people I've been working with for years, and for a much longer time than I've been signed to any kind of record label. When I was doing this independently and releasing my own music, I had the same management, I had the same booking agent, I had the same PR and radio people, just people who believed in me and saw something in me before I did. I treat my major record label relationships like I would treat an independent record label relationship, where I'm in charge of the creative and they understand and respect and appreciate that. And it's so important for that to happen.
If this is Jack Garratt 101 for some of our listeners, right, their introduction to you, what do you want them to know about Jack Garratt, the musician, but also Jack Garratt, the guy?
I don't know. Jack Garratt, the musician, is someone who will only strive for mutual respect through music. I'm nothing if I don't have respect for my audience, and I'm nothing if my audience doesn't have respect for me. And I try and say that in every song that I make. I 100% want to open people up to some sounds and songs and ideas that maybe they won't have heard somewhere else, for sure. But I don't want to think I have the righteousness or the right to take them somewhere, to lead them, because I don't. I just want to share music. Jack Garratt, the person, is just the same, I think, but in just different ways. I don't know. They're two very different people, for sure. Two very different people, but yeah, I don't know. One of them, no one knows a lot about, and I don't think anyone ever will.
Interesting.
Yeah,
the privacy part.
Yeah, I'm much more interested in talking about the music I make, not necessarily the things I am or know. Though they have a direct link to the music I make, for sure.
We'll figure you out through your music.
Yeah, it says more than my words ever could.
Thank you for sharing your words.
Thank you for
having me.
It's been
great. It's really a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much.